2,900 reefs, 1,000 islands and caves, a vast array of corals, seagrasses, mangroves, fish, iconic wildlife. So I painted a great picture. It's a great place. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the traditional owners of the Great Barrier Reef, and they have a continuing connection to their sea country. It's a multi-use marine protected area, and it's critical to the cultural, economic and social well-being of more than 1 million people who live in its catchment, and it's valued by the national and international community. It's important for both lifestyles and livelihoods and supports a wide range of activities, including tourism, of course, recreation, fishing, research, defence activities, shipping and ports. The Great Barrier Reef ecosystem has long been recognised for its remarkable biodiversity. It's an integral part of the Australian national identity, the subject of national pride, reflected in both the number of people who visit it and the continuing public interest shown in its future health and management. I think we've all seen that, so it's clearly worth protecting. The Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority is the Australian government agency that's responsible for the care and protection of the Great Barrier Reef through the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Act 1975. The main object of our Act is to provide for the long-term protection and conservation of the environment, biodiversity and heritage values of the Great Barrier Reef region. On the 26th of October 1981, the Great Barrier Reef was inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of its natural outstanding universal value. Many tourism operators and visitors intuitively understand what makes the Great Barrier Reef so special. To maintain this outstanding universal value, it's really important that we've got adequate protection and management systems in place to look after it. The Marine Park is one of the world's largest marine protected areas. It's complemented by the Great Barrier Reef Coast Marine Park, which is established in the adjacent state waters by the Queensland Government under their legislation. Now, both these marine parks form the Great Barrier Reef World Heritage Area. I said earlier it's a multiple use area, and it operates on the principle that reasonable use of this natural resource can coexist with conservation. And managing the region is complex. And if anybody's ever had a look at the complexity of legislation that supports the management of the park and the Coast Marine Park, you'd agree with me. It involves the responsibility to maintain the area's natural and cultural heritage while allowing for sustainable use. It's a challenging task because of the size, the diversity of the reef ecosystem, its economic importance, its local, national and international interests, and as I said, the jurisdictional, biophysical and social complexities of this amazing place. So let's talk a little bit about tourism. For the Great Barrier Reef, its long-term attractiveness as a tourism destination has largely been based on its reputation as the world's largest and best-known coral reef ecosystem, one that's got spectacular and diverse species, and we're lucky to say, combined with a high standard of tourism operations and protected area management. The region's tourism industry is almost exclusively nature-based, with coral reefs and islands as the focus. So I'm going to sound like I'm painting a picture for you to come and visit, so if you haven't got a plan to do that, you'll have one by the time I'm finished. There are opportunities to see iconic wildlife, such as whales, turtles, sharks, seabirds, to go boating, diving, snorkeling, fishing, sailing, hiking, camping, and enjoy various other water sports. The industry offers a wide range of tourism experiences, from cruise ships, liveaboard vessels, to high-speed catamarans, fishing charters, and kayak tours. While tourism visitation occurs across most of the Great Barrier Reef, activity is consistently focused in a small portion of the marine park, with more than 85% of all our tourism activity occurring in just 7% of the park. There's approximately 1.9 million visitor days to the reef every year, and most of that visitation is actually confined to areas around offshore Cairns and the Whitsundays. Now, I said before it's 344,000 square kilometres or a bit over, and if it's the World Heritage Area, we're talking about 348,000 square kilometres. So what that visitation statistic actually means that most of the marine park is actually less than 1,000 tourism-related visits per year, and in some places there's actually none. It's a really big place. Tourism is the most significant direct use of the region, both in terms of economic value and employment. It's a major use of the World Heritage Area, and it's worth about $5.2 billion to the Australian economy and provides around 64,000 jobs. We have a very proactive tourism industry which works in partnership with us in a number of ways. Marcio mentioned earlier the environmental management charge, and on behalf of the authority, the industry collects about $7 million each year from tourists through an environmental management charge, and these funds directly contribute to the management of the Great Barrier Reef. The tourism industry is definitely a key partner for us in the reef's protection and management. Participation in the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority's Tourism Reef Advisory Committee gives us the opportunity to provide or to receive direct advice from the tourism industry as we're developing our policy. It gives us a great chance to ground truth through that developmental stage. The tourism operators are also actively involved as stewards of the reef by implementing a range of actions to improve the sustainability of the industry and the health and resilience of the reef itself. As part of their day job, they present the attributes of the marine park and educate visitors with regards to its outstanding universal value. They also participate in our high standard tourism program. They participate as a part of that also in the climate action program. They assist us in the management of crown of thorn starfish and support the Eye on the Reef program as well. So I want to talk a little bit more detail about each of the last 4 points there, just to give you a clearer view of what we mean when we talk about partnerships. While we manage tourism through minimum standards which are fundamentally set in our legislation, we also encourage marine park tourism operators to operate at a higher level. And operators actually self-select to be part of our high standard tourism partnership. It's a 3-way partnership between us, Ecotourism Australia, and the tourism operators themselves. The objective of that partnership is a shared vision, and it's built around a healthy reef equals a healthy tourism industry. So our role as managers is to foster interest in this high standard program. We use a third party, which is Ecotourism Australia, and they currently provide a function that ensures a range of best practice standards, an auditing regime which includes an appeals process. And what we do is we recognise those operators who take the initiative to be a part of that program, and we offer them the opportunity to apply for a 15-year permit as opposed to a 6-year permit, and that's certainly of value to them. We also showcase these operators on our website and promote them at national events. Ecotourism Australia plays a key role for us, and they're founded on the belief that eco-certification results in sound business management practices and operational procedures, best environmental management, and the provision of quality experiences. As they're part of our partnership, Ecotourism Australia continually improves its best practice standards, assesses our operators against those best practice standards. It promotes these certified operators and manages the integrity of the certification through their auditing processes. So the operator's role in this gig, they voluntarily become part of the program. They play a crucial role in protecting and presenting the Great Barrier Reef through their commitment to the high standards and the fact that they actually undergo regular audits to make sure the brand integrity is sound. Our high standard operators are also involved in weekly monitoring their tourism sites and they've been providing an amazing amount of data and sightings to add to our database of knowledge of this huge area. Through the High Standard Tourism Program, operators are increasingly working to voluntary best practice standards in their activities. So let's explore what these standards are a little bit. I mentioned earlier that we use the Marine Park Permitting System to set some minimum environmental practice standards that we require for sustainable tourism to operate in the park. And as I said, in addition, we encourage our operators to strive to deliver some higher standards across a broader range of operational elements. And that's around climate change action, good quality interpretation, and working with local communities. So there's 3 planks to the standards. One is about best practice protection, including planning to protect all habitats in the reef and the species within it, undertaking minimal impact activities, and taking climate action. Best practice in presentation, and this includes information for visitors which is accurate and delivered in an exciting, meaningful and memorable way. So when they go home, they'll be encouraged to make a difference in protecting the world going forward. Best practice in partnership, and this is with their own crew. It's to improve awareness and understanding of what those initiatives are, to get ownership within their company of those crew members. It's working with us as the protected area managers on conservation initiatives for the reef, including monitoring their sites and reporting incidents. It's also working with local communities and also traditional owners. These standards enhance environmental protection, reef resilience and tourism sustainability. High standard operators are also leading the way in responding to climate change by reducing and mitigating their carbon emissions. Their efforts are recognised through the Climate Action Certification Program, and they undertake a range of activities as part of that program and are recognised for their efforts. By way of example, we've got the Great Barrier Reef Marine Tourism Climate Change Action Strategy, a marine tourism coordination framework for environmental incidents, and a marine tourism contingency plan, which fundamentally builds in some flexibility for the tourism industry to deal with extreme weather events that might have an adverse impact on their particular business. As part of our climate change action, we initiated a series of case studies quite a few years ago, and this is about sharing learnings from each of our operators within the industry, and it's a great network of knowledge that's been ground truthed and told in a way that is believable because it's told by their colleagues. So I want to talk a little bit now about managing the crown of thorns starfish. So why do we care? More importantly, why does the tourism industry care? The Australian Institute of Marine Science research associated with their long-term monitoring program indicates that crown of thorns starfish outbreaks have contributed to the significant loss of coral cover on the Great Barrier Reef. Let's do a quick biology lap around a COTS, which is what I'm going to refer to it. They're actually native, they're not a pest. They're only a pest when there's lots of them. So they eat coral, they prefer plate and branching corals, and in natural numbers, they don't necessarily harm the ecosystem. So a natural number is something that's less than 15 per hectare. Anything over that, we consider that to be an outbreak. They have enormous reproductive potential. So this is a figure that will probably knock your socks off unless you already know about a crown of thorns starfish. A female crown of thorns that's probably under 30 centimetres has got the capacity to have between 500,000 and 2.5 million eggs each year to lay. Similarly, one that's in excess of 40 centimetres has the capacity to produce between 45 and 65 million eggs. So they're very effective breeders. So how has our tourism industry partners helped us? The Association of Marine Park Tourism Operators, in partnership with us, have undertaken a targeted crown of thorns starfish control program. The marine tourism industry and our interests very much aligned. We wanted coral reefs protected, and the tourism industry wanted their high-value tourism sites protected. AMTO, which is the acronym, sorry, I'm a government employee, I'm going to say AMTO instead of Australian Marine Park Tourism Operators, Association of Marine Park Tourism Operators, had support from the beginning. So they sought political support and funding. They worked under contract for us to deliver the program, and through 2 control vessels, they've actually conducted 50 voyages every year. It includes up to 24 crew. I've said 300,000 starfish culled, but that's not about the success, it's about the effort. Because if we had no starfish culled, we'd be doing really well because there wouldn't be any. So the total reef area protected is 3,400 hectares. It's been a huge investment. $9.55 million has been invested. It's assisted by other marine park operators, and there's 27 other Crown of Thorns starfish control permits, and we've just recently been able to launch a new injection method, which is a single injection. And so we've introduced some new control guidelines. We've got an eye on the Reef Integrated Monitoring Program that also works in partnership. It's a significant partnership between our field management program, tourism operators and the community. And let's talk about the tourism focus on that. We've got 84 tourism operators who've been involved since the life of the program, which started in 1993. We bought it in-house in 2003. Over 150 staff have been involved. Over 500 in-water hours dedicated to monitoring a range of sites. They provided almost 7,000 surveys with 10,400 sighting observations. We have a smartphone app, which is our Eye on the Reef program that was established in 2007 and is part of an improved system to support the Eye on the Reef program in partnership with the state government, which is the Queensland government. We developed an iPhone app for both iPhone and Android phones that allow participants to submit their sighting information, as well as providing early warning of coral bleaching, disease, damage, predation. And we've been able to include real-time reporting of stranded animals and marine pollution events. So there's been over 12,000 sightings received since 2007, and just because I can, I wanted to show you a few snaps of some of our exciting wildlife, and this is from the participants who provided this material through our sightings network. And as I said, that's just because I can. So fundamentally, the tourism industry makes much of the vast area of the Great Barrier Reef accessible to visitors. Without it, many visitors simply wouldn't be able to enjoy or experience the region's values. The industry, therefore, plays a key role in fulfilling Australia's World Heritage obligation to present the Great Barrier Reef World Heritage Area. Most tourism programs involve education and interpretation activities, and they're aimed at increasing appreciation, understanding of the natural environment and sustainable practices that support the reef. So we believe that the Great Barrier Reef tourism operators definitely do work in partnership with us for a healthier Great Barrier Reef for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Yes, quite an interesting site. As Karen said, there's a lot, particularly about World Heritage values that are contested, particularly at the moment with the interest of UNESCO on the site. It's a very challenging site, it's a very complex site, but from a tourism point of view, clearly iconic. I think inspirational, the work that's going on, and a site that's invested with so many values, ecological, cultural, social and economic. So it's, as Karen said, a place you should visit whilst you're here. Moving now to our second speaker and to a case study from the Congo. It's my pleasure to now introduce to you Dr. Paul Telfer, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Congo Conservation Company in the Republic of Congo. It's a pioneering ecotourism operation that works in partnership with wilderness safaris and I'm sure, again, some fairly inspirational and interesting images to see. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Robyn, and I'd like to thank Tony and the organizers for allowing me this opportunity to present, and for the speakers who have gone before me today, because they've given me a nice window of a broader horizon rather than the area where I'm going to speak about, which is in Central Africa, where I've lived for the last 20 years. So to orient everybody, is there a pointer? I'm going to talk to you today about our work in the Republic of Congo. And the reason I asked for the pointer is to distinguish the Republic of Congo from the Democratic Republic of Congo, because many people who don't live in Central Africa don't realize that there are two Congos. And when you hear Congo, you get this image of the Congo that makes most of the news, and that's one that's been having political problems with its neighbors and some internal conflicts. But the Republic of Congo is a stable country and has a lot to offer from its neighbor. So our model, the Odzala-Kokwa Conservation Commerce model, is a model of partners that we're trying to roll out to use tourism as a conservation tool, and we're doing it in Odzala-Kokwa National Park, which is one of Congo's 4 national parks, and it's the oldest national park, founded in 1935. It was made a biosphere reserve in 1977. It's the largest of the 4 parks with over 13,000 square kilometers, and it's one of the strongholds of large populations of charismatic megafauna, so your gorillas, your chimpanzees, your forest elephants, forest bongo, 11 species of primates. And in this large forest, you have these forest clearings, which are created and maintained by the animals themselves because of the salt content in the soil, so they keep the forest trees back, and it's a very great place for you to be able to see these animals that are mostly elusive as they pass their lives in the forest. It's also a great place for hunters to take the animals out, and the wildlife crime issue is something that is going to figure into my talk here. So why Odzala? In Odzala, it's the crown jewel of the Congo Basin. It is extremely large, it's never been logged, it's relatively intact, it has all of its megafauna, forest elephants, bongo, forest hogs, chimpanzees, gorillas, flocks of African gray parrots. It's the last great jungle of Tarzan, and it's unspoiled. And it's not been it's underutilized, it's unrecognized for its value, and we're trying to change that. This is a map of Odzala, and as you can see, there are over 70 villages surrounding the national park. And as many national parks in these developing countries in Central Africa, the governments have not been able to prioritize funding for their management, and as a result, many parks are paper parks and are not well managed. But the European Union in 1992 started to fund a park management program for Odzala called ECOFAC, and it's an abbreviation for French abbreviation for the Tropical Forest of Central Africa Conservation Program. And the funding of this project started off well, but it didn't end as well as the donors would have liked. And the reason for this is that the more than 20 years of funding came in phases, and as the park management project started, one funding cycle would stop, they would have to lay off all the people who were employed by the park. There was a period of disillusionment, and the project would start up again, and they'd rehire, and the population became very disillusioned. And in 2010, the European Union decided to change the model because it wasn't working very well. One of the other reasons it wasn't 100% satisfactory is the project implementers were consultants, and so each phase had a different group of consultants implementing the work, and none of them have long-term investments in the country or long-term investments in the site, and we feel that that's very important for successful, sustainable management. So ODonnell and these forests are very fragile, and the people who are not earning an income working for the park are earning an income through the bushmeat trade, and that's really your only alternative. They're mostly hunter-gatherers or practicing small-scale agriculture, and so the only opportunity for them to make money is to profit from the wildlife. And the business usual model is not working, so you have to do something. We had to change something. There's an increase of threat because of poverty, the ivory trade, and so we had to rethink the model. And one of the problems that we realized is that when we think about these national parks, we think about the ecosystem, and we want to try and save the ecosystem when we've got all the wildlife and all the flora and all the fauna, but in reality, the ecosystem is also about the people. And so you've got to engage the people and successfully provide them an incentive to protect the wildlife, or conservation is not going to work. And there you go. This is just a village scene from Mboko, which is one of the largest villages around there. We've got to somehow convince these people that this resource, which is their resource, is worth fighting for, and not simply just using up as quickly as possible. So the ODonnell model is to bring the governments together, to bring the conservation community together, and to bring business together to create tourism and outreach that will give value of the park to the people. And so there's a strong political will in the government of Congo to do this. They want tourism to work in their country. One of the only types of tourism that they can quickly benefit from is from ecotourism and the wildlife viewing. We've got, through the African Parks Network, which is a South African NGO that manages national parks, funded by the EU to provide strong park management to protect the wildlife, which is therefore protecting the tourism product, and a conservation philanthropist who wants to do community outreach and has been brought in by another South African NGO called Leadership for Conservation in Africa. And this is the Sabine Plattner African Charities, a businesswoman who is very interested in conservation. And together they've all decided to add the fourth component, which is the key to the model, which is creating a tourism industry where one did not exist before. And this is to provide a visible and professional ecotourism offering to generate local revenue for the people who are living around the park and to create a sense of pride in their forests. And so with this in mind, in 2010 we embarked upon this pioneering endeavor to create tourism in an area where there was no tourism at all. So ODonnell was a blank canvas. And as a result, we had an opportunity to do something that had never been done before in an area that has never been done previously. And it was completely open. So we started with community consultations. We went into all the communities and found out what they wanted, how they wanted to see it, and we listened to what they said, and we used their knowledge of the product and the potential. And then we went out and ground truthed it and found out all the areas that would have a potential offering that would be interesting for international tourists. Continued to ground truth, and you can see that it's very wild. Then we engaged a South African safari company called Wilderness Safaris, who are renowned for their ecological and community sensitivities. And with the funding of the philanthropist conservationist, we decided to create two lodges in an international circuit. So one lodge is in the forest where you can do guerrilla viewing, and the other lodge is along the river where you can have river activities and see elephants, and it's a combination of all the sites to benefit from this wonderful place. So the lodges were built over a period of a year and a half using FSC certified timber from local logging concessions. So these are sustainably harvested trees. Mostly local material were used, and an ecological footprint that's as little as possible. So it's two camps with 6 lodgings each, so it's high-end, low-impact tourism. And we tried to create the lodges in a way that fit with the local scenery. However, we had to create everything from scratch because there was no tourism industry, so we had to train people from the local communities how to be hosts and how to be entertainers and to provide services that they'd never had any experience before, so that was part of the practice. And we are making a difference. We've now had the lodge open for over a year. We're generating revenue. 5% of our revenue goes into community development projects. We've got 44 Congolese working for us, so that's 440 individuals who benefit from those salaries. We've got community centers that are opening up in 3 villages. One is fully functional, 2 are opening this year, which are specializing in early childhood development and nutritional needs for the children, all financed through the NGOs and the Community Development Fund. And the idea is to show the world that this is possible and to try and promote this model in other areas of Central Africa, in Congo first, but other areas of Central Africa later. So the takeaway message is that conservation can work if we apply a new model. We need to uplift people through employment and education, and we need them to get a sense of pride that people from the international community are coming to see what they've got to offer, and that way it'll have some value to them. So we're already rolling out this model in another national park in the Republic of Congo, working with another wildlife NGO, the Wildlife Conservation Society in Nubala and Ndoki. They're in the development phase where they've got some research camps that can be converted into tourism sites, and they just developed the tourism strategy for the area. We started from nothing, and it's been very challenging, but it's been worth it. But again, starting in a country where there's no tourism, there are some obstacles. The business model is very challenging. The time on return for the investment is much longer than most business models. This investor is going to turn all positive cash flow back into the community, so it's not about making money, but there is opportunity there. We didn't do this to make money, but we did it because we felt it was important. However, the bottom line remains very important, and we can get donor funding to create these lodges, but operating them has to move towards profitability in order for us to show that places like ODonnell can be profitable and that this is a model that can be sustained. So our goal is to become a catalyst for the rest of the Congolese community and Central Africa, and hopefully get Congo working and conservation working in Congo. And there are just a couple of challenges I want to highlight very quickly. I'm going to come to an end here. There are 2 Congos I mentioned before. Trying to get people to come to our Congo is very different because they're afraid of the other Congo. And trying to create a Congo brand. We've got a very nice place to visit, and we did very well this year. We've had some revenue growth, and we're very well moving towards sustainability, but then the E word hit. This is where we are, and bookings this year have just dropped off the map. It's not just the Republic of Congo, but it's across Africa. But we're at less than 10% of where we were this time last year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm sorry, we're sort of pushing because of time, but clearly no less complex or challenging than the first speaker.